Shabbat Shalom. So given the story that we're telling this week, I was a little surprised when I read my Torah portion and found it disturbing rather than enlightening. Please indulge me for a second while I recap the Torah portion so you can understand what I mean. The Israelites come to the Red Sea. The waters are parted, and they walk safely through to freedom. The Egyptians get to the sea and see the Israelites escaping. They rush to capture their slaves and drag them back to the captivity that they so richly deserve. They don't think about the miracle that they're witnessing, and they all drown. Had they not been so greedy, so evil, so focused on capturing their slaves, they might have lived. That's the story, right? It's the way I remember it. It's probably the way you remember it too. But that's not what happened according to the Torah. There are some small differences in the translations I read, but all of them agree that God had a much more direct involvement in the death of the Egyptians. God locked the wheels of the chariots or had them fall off or had them get stuck in the riverbed. That stopped the Egyptians from fleeing. Most of the versions I read said that some Egyptians escaped, but God threw them back in. All of the versions stated that none of the Egyptians survived. Now, prior to parting the Red Sea, God separated the Egyptians from the Israelites with a pillar of smoke and fire. Couldn't that have been enough? If the deaths of the Egyptians had been restricted to those that first chased the Israelites into the sea, couldn't that have been enough? Why did all the Egyptians have to die? I checked multiple sources looking for a scholarly explanation, a good lesson to be learned from the death of the Egyptians, and couldn't find one. It was strange to me that such a horrible act was not commented on. There is a midrash that comes a little later that suggests that the deaths were not necessarily a good thing. According to the midrash, the Israelites are dancing and singing on the shore about how great God is for delivering us from slavery. We sang that just a little while ago. The midrash says that when the angels started to join in with the singing, God admonishes them, saying, "The creation of my hands are drowning in the sea, and you are singing song?" A little strange given that God caused them to drown, but it did seem to support my uneasiness. I tried to come up with a good conclusion as to why this had to happen. I tried to justify the action. They did hold us in slavery for many generations. I tried an allegory. Maybe it said something about how, like God, we're capable of doing horrible things, but that doesn't stop us from being divine. I tried to be clever. God created us in God's image, so that proves that God must be imperfect just like us. None of these satisfied my anger about the passage. I kept looking and agonizing. It was vitally important for me to find out why freedom wasn't enough and all those people had to die. And then I realized that the passion I had to find the answer, this burning desire to question what I thought was wrong, was the thing that was important to me. That's what I needed to share with you. Sometimes things happen that make no sense to us because we feel they are so wrong. When that happens, our job, our obligation, is to question them. We should not accept things blindly or assume that others know better than us if we don't truly believe that. We need to dig, we need to find the facts for ourselves, and we need to try to satisfy our conscience, not only when reading the Torah, but in our lives. If our liberties are taken away from us in the name of security, we should not accept that, but question it. If innocent civilians are killed because of the actions of their leaders, we should not accept that, but question it. And if people we admire suggest things that do not make sense to us, we should not accept it, but question it. Hopefully, we will not just question, but find answers and take action. But action cannot be taken to rectify bad situations unless we first question rather than blindly accept. The questioning is vital for change to take place. It took my dissatisfaction with my Torah portion to remind myself what I value most in Judaism, that ours is a religion of wrestling with God and of constantly questioning. In refusing to accept that there was nothing wrong with what I read, I was not being disrespectful. I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. We must embrace our curiosity and not bury it in the name of faith. Often, the best thing we can do, the most godly thing we can do, is not to accept what bothers us, but to question it. Shabbat Shalom.